Hello, America, and welcome to another episode of the Ultra MK podcast, where together we are reversing the narrative. And on today's show, we are being joined for the very first time by a friend of mine in the freedom fighting movement. He is an attorney who's been taking the fight to the deep state from DC, from the East Coast to the West Coast. And he has been very vocal about all of the exposure of the COVID scamdemic and all of the things that have been happening in our country since 2020. I'd like to welcome to the show Mr. Tom Renz.
That is our obligation, to inform and alert the American people, to make certain that they possess all the facts that they need and understand them as well, the perils, the prospects, the purposes of our program, and the choices that we face.
How are you doing, Tom?
Doing very well, man. I'm glad to be here, and I'm really excited about your show. I'm excited that you're doing this. You're a good guy, and we need more voices like you out there.
Now, I appreciate that, Tom. I've been watching your show, since you started yours, the Tom Renz podcast,
Yeah.
and you've had some really, really good conversations with some really amazing patriots, amazing people that have just been fighting relentlessly to preserve the republic, to preserve our Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and have been doing their best. And you've been doing your best to wake up the public to what's really been going on. I mean, I've seen shows you've done about certain patents that exist that nobody ever knew patents were a thing when it comes to things like mRNA technology. And you're also always looking up at the skies and questioning, well, what are those white trails that we just have kept seeing for the last 20 years? I don't remember those when I was a kid. So you really, sir, have been an inspiration to me. And I love the circles that you run in, from General Flynn to Clay Clark and so many other great Americans. And so truly, I just like to say thank you for joining our show today. And I really have some questions that I've been wanting to ask you over the weekend. I put some things together. And but before we go into the specifics, let's just introduce you to the audience. Tom Renz, what are you passionate about? What drives you, and where are you from, sir?
Well, my passion is honestly, I mean, I fight for God and for kids, the future, right? Uh, so I'm 49. I got two kids, and 2020 rolls around, and they decide to destroy the lives of our children and reset our nation and do all these horrible things, and it's just not something I could live with. So, as I took stock, what do you do? Well, I was an attorney, so I started suing people and I started fighting. And I'm okay with speaking publicly. I'm okay with rallying people. I've been, as a leader in sports, a leader in this, a leader in that. So I have no problem trying to lead. And so I took what God gave me and tried to find ways to use it to serve, because at the end of the day, I may not be a perfect Christian. I don't even try and pretend I'm a perfect Christian, but I do try and be a servant to God. And that's what he told us to do, right? Take what I give you and do something with it. If I give you one talent, don't bury it. Go invest it and bring me back two. If one talent, of course, referencing the parable, one guy gets 100 talents, one guy gets 10 talents, one guy gets one talent. The guy with 100 turns it into 100 more. The guy with 10 turns it into 10 more. The guy with one goes out and buries it. We don't want to be the guy that buries it, right? So I've taken everything that God's given me and an awful lot of grace, and been able to really kind of have an impact. We were uh, before COVID, I was just doing my thing and living my life, and I was very happy that way. I never wanted to be famous. I never wanted to be a big shot. But COVID comes along, and I had to do what I had to do, and I'm very proud of the work we've done. We were instrumental in bringing down vaccine mandates through our litigation. We were instrumental in ending the emergency declarations and all the lockdowns, the masks, the social distancing, all of that stuff. We were instrumental in exposing that this came from a lab and that it was created by Anthony Fauci and EcoHealth Alliance and USAID and the CIA. We were instrumental in bringing to light certain other things, mRNA in the food supply. Nobody knew that that was happening until we shined the light on it. And from there, we were able to kind of shine the light and bring attention to the food supply as an issue on a much larger scale, because millions and millions of people then started looking at what they were eating. Now we're fighting on glyphosate. We're fighting on some of these additives, fighting on all these different things. Meanwhile, we're looking at corruption elsewhere. Where else is the corruption happening? We see threats, AI. We see threats, the global track and trace system. More mRNA vaccines on the way. More mRNA this and mRNA and gene therapy that. We see the chemtrails and the geoengineering. We see so many different things. So basically, I swallowed a red pill, looked around, and said, "Oh God, I've got a lot of work to do, and I've been doing as much as I can, as fast as I can ever since." So that's that.
So let me ask you, so growing up and looking around the world that you were living in, did you know anything about this New World Order cabal, or the people who have been, controlling the world, or infiltrating America, as a younger man? Or was this something that God came to you with, and just you awakened rapidly within a short amount of time because you had to, because you felt that something was evil that was going on? Like, what's your perspective of that?
So I was God rest his soul and may he rest in peace, Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
Probably one of will probably die as one of my personal heroes. When I go to the grave, he will probably always still be a personal hero to me. So I grew up a Limbaugh baby, and I started listening to him back when he started in the '90s, or back when
Hmm.
he came out in the '90s. When people started hearing about him, and I was a young man. I was always had an interest in what was going on. I always thought I was awake. And, I was always conservative leaning, Republican leaning, a Limbaugh guy.
Hmm.
When 2020 hit, as awake as I thought I was, I found out that I wasn't.
Hmm.
So, for example, in 2019, I was pro-vaccine. I
Hmm.
thought that whole thing was just a load of crap. What do you mean anti-vax? What does that even mean, right?
Right.
I suspected and believed that there were people pulling strings on some of the evil around the world, but I never really dug into it or had evidence. I couldn't really show, and I suspected there were all sorts of things, but I was just living my life, right? I was doing my thing, and I voted, and I spoke out against the evils of the left and those sorts of things. But I was much more mainstream, and I didn't realize I was mainstream, but I was much more mainstream Republican with a very conservative bent. I mean, I never liked the Lindsey Grahams and John McCain's of the world.
Were
Then,
you suspicious of, I mean, I remember being a young man listening to Rush Limbaugh all the time with my dad,
yeah,
all the time. And if we can remember back to after 9/11 and the Patriot Act and getting involved in the Middle East and the narrative of weapons of mass destruction, were you buying it back then? Or like, what, I mean, let's be honest, like my dad was all for, hey, let's go fight some terrorists. But
yeah,
now that we're learning about the Uniparty and
yeah,
the military industrial complex, my perspective has completely changed.
yeah.
What about you?
Well, I mean, I thought I was in Washington D.C. on 9/11, and I was when I woke up, I felt my hotel shake when the Pentagon blew up. And there was also, here's a story that I've told a few times, but I've never gotten a single response on this anywhere. I'm pretty sure this is probably the most censored thing on the planet. But I was in DC, and there was a second explosion from somewhere else in the city, nowhere near the Pentagon. I know I was there, and they were talking about it on the radio that day. And I'll get back. I'm going to tie this into your question. Uh, they were talking about it on the radio that day, and they kept everybody sudden, and they're talking about they thought it was a subway bomb. because it was definitely nowhere near the Pentagon. It was from, you could feel the shake when it happened, but it came from a different direction, right? I felt both shakes, the shake from the Pentagon and whatever secondary explosions. But then this other thing was a different thing. And it was just, they were blowing up because I was listening to the radio to try and figure out what was going on. And they're just blowing up the airways about it. Well, all of a sudden the radio got cut. It literally went dead. Live talk radio went dead. And it was a
Wow.
big station, right? I mean, it wasn't like just went total dead air for like a minute. And then they started playing some music, which is a talk radio station. And then the guy comes back and is just like, yeah, how about that weather out there? It's like totally, and never another word. I've never to this day heard another word about this. And I've never had anybody that's, been, came out, corroborated or anything else, but I was there and I saw, heard, I was there. And I saw, everything. So this all happened. But I bought 100% that 9/11 was what they said it was, terrorists blowing us off this and the other. I supported the Iraq war. I supported all those things. I will, but I always had suspicion, right? Because I had this other thing that happened that I experienced. And I knew there was something more going on, but I didn't know what. But it just seemed amazing to me that everybody could be fooled, right? It just seemed like, wait a second, can they really fool everybody? No, this has just got to be what it is, right? I would have heard from someone in New York if this was really, demolition. They would be on the news somewhere, right? I mean, there'd be some credible reporting on it.
Right.
And so I just didn't buy it. And then I think probably one of the most fundamental things that happened was the internet. As the internet became more ubiquitous and social media became more ubiquitous, and we started having individuals capable of speaking up so individuals could be heard even when the media wouldn't cover it. And you could evaluate for yourself whether they were credible, right? So
Right.
fast forward to 2020. And what happened is when 2020 hit and the COVID thing hit, I was working on a master's in health science. And I was doing biostatistics. I was doing epidemiology. I was writing papers on this stuff for a master's program. So it had to be master's program quality. And everything I did was, 100%, 100%, 100%. You have great grades on everything. And so there were no flaws in my work. And everything I saw showed that they were lying about COVID in every single instance. And then when I dug into the research and I found out that their data and their statistics didn't back what they were saying in the media, but every single person in the media parroted what Anthony Fauci said, no matter how ridiculous it was. My world shattered, right? My world shattered because I would sit in my office and I would run numbers and I would come out and I would say, what the heck is going on here? This is ridiculous. Can you believe this? And I'd say, this is mind blowing. Everything they're saying is a lie. And then I go back in my office and I'd work the numbers again. And they'd come out the same way. And I'd say, I'm not wrong on this. I've read these numbers 10 times. And I'd do it again because I couldn't believe that what I was seeing. Everything they were saying was a lie and it was being pushed universally. So just like J6, just like 9/11, just like all these things, yeah, they do. And they can lie on a universal scale. And the conspiracy theories are theories only until they're facts.
Right.
And sometimes they are facts. And so then I started to question everything. And God bless one of my best friends in the world to this day. And she's a legitimate offline, not just we work together, but a real friend, Sherry Tenpenny. Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, who I think everybody probably knows who she is. But, she led the anti-vax work for 20, 30 years. I mean, she's like the queen of the movement. Before Bobby Kennedy even knew of vaccines, where she was working on this stuff,
Wow.
And, she was a witness on one of my very first cases. And she says, Tom, this isn't just COVID they lie about. She says it's the whole vaccine. I'm like, no. Even after all I'd seen with COVID,
Wow.
I'd been so programmed to believe a narrative that I still wasn't questioning. So As I've gone through, Matt, honestly, the thing that's most profound for me is the realization that the entirety of what we see on Fox News, CNN, and it's all of them. It's not just CNN and MSNBC, it's Fox News too.
Right.
They have narratives to control what you believe, whether you're on the right, the left, the middle. Everywhere they go, they try and control it. Now we're seeing them do the same thing with influencers by buying influencers, putting bots, doing things like that. Twitter is a great example of where you're seeing this really develop now because listen, I follow the evidence. I don't care whether people like it or not. I'm asking questions about the Iran war. I'm asking uncomfortable questions about difficult topics. And I'll see bot replies, dozens of them sometimes. And you can tell when it's a bot, when it's got, 96 follows and 112 followers. It doesn't even matter when it started. And they're giving some AI version of the same language, same thing, same this, same that. You can get to where you can kind of pick out the bots versus the real, and it's not 100%, but they're now trying to control that, and they're also paying. I'm sorry, I don't know how your audience feels about Dan Bongino, but I mean, listen, Bongino sold his soul on this whole thing. He had the opportunity to put child rapists in jail, and instead tried to lie to us and said that there's no evidence of anything with Epstein. I mean, the guy is a straight up liar. But we see some of these guys, and then they come out and they attack others. Well, why is
Yeah.
that? Well, because they got something to gain from attacking others. So we see this kind of control mechanism, and it's led me to this point where I just question everything. And sometimes it makes people upset. Sometimes it doesn't. The goal isn't to be controversial. The goal is just to get to the truth.
100%. And I think that that's where we cannot be so tribal to where we cannot question the powers to be and these elected officials. They're still elected officials. We elected President Trump to do a job that
Yeah,
we felt that he was the right candidate to do and to achieve. I'm with you. Ever since we brought him and the new administration and the new cabinets into position in the White House, nothing seems as it should have been with what they were campaigning on.
yeah,
Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, they talked a really big game going into the 2024 election. And now that they're there, they pretend like there's nothing to see here. And I'll tell you, just from what I can see in the America First movement, people are really starting to question what the hell is going on with the DOJ, with the FBI, with accountability. At what
yeah,
point are we going to see? And it's obviously for the children. Like the children are what's going to unite this country because people on all of this political spectrum have hearts for children, and there's great people of all backgrounds, and it's gonna
yeah,
what's gonna be the ultimate red pill for everybody. And now that the Epstein drops and the Epstein files are slowly coming out, better late than never. It is unifying people. I'm seeing that, but even with a guy like you who has been in the fight since 2020, what about the accountability from COVID? What about the accountability with Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci and all these people that had been using the mainstream media to propagandize all of us to go out and put in an experimental jab into our body? Like, at what point are we going to see some accountability? And I think that's where people are
yeah.
starting to kind of grow restless.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what we all elected Trump for, was to drain the swamp, and instead he's back stroking it. And
Hmm.
but I mean, when you have as your campaign manager and now chief of staff, Susie Wiles, who's a Bush loyalist. She's a Bush era loyalist. She's a dynasty rhino. She's openly talked about, how she disagrees on most America First policies, first in the Political article and then in the Vanity Fair. I mean, she's a controlled lobbyist. I mean, she's not going to want these Epstein criminals to go to jail because they're all her clients.
Right. Same with
Um,
Miriam Adelson. Yeah.
I haven't looked into Miriam, so I don't really know. I mean, I should because everybody references her all the time. But
Hmm.
I can only fight so many fights at once. But,
Hmm.
Wiles is running the show up there. And,
Hmm.
then she appoints Pam Bondi. Now, Pam Bondi, you got to understand, Pam Bondi was AG in Florida, and everybody knew Epstein was running his child rape ring out of Palm Beach.
Yeah.
Everybody. It's not like, they after they say, well, yeah, but her hands were tied. The plea deal. No, I'm not talking about that. After the plea deal, he continued to run his child rape ring, and everybody knew it. It's not like it was a secret. It's not like nobody knew what was going on. Everybody knew it. So she covered for that essentially. She didn't
Hmm.
do anything. She had the opportunity to stop elite billionaire child rapists and didn't.
Mm.
So why would we think she'd do anything? Do you really think that the woman who didn't arrest the child rapist in Florida is going to suddenly do it as the US AG? Of course not, because then you're going to say, well, why didn't you do something before? Why didn't you stop this? If you knew, if it was, I mean, think of the black eye it would be for her for everybody to suddenly say, oh, wait, you mean when you were AG, you could have stopped him raping children and you didn't? I mean, of course she's not going to do that. Not to mention that, again, I don't think, Wiles wants that. I don't think anyone wants that. So you've got a lot of things happening, One of the biggest questions everybody's asking right now is, we see there is no question, there's no accountability. Although I will tell you, do expect some. I expect now how that works, I don't know yet. But I do know for a fact that Donald Trump himself is the guy going after the election stuff. He brought in, I mean, Harmeet Dillon was brought in no small part for that, I know. And they are going after that. So I will tell you that with regard to election fraud and actions in and around elections, I expect there will be massive, massive actions between now and election time. The one area that I think we're going to get some satisfaction is that. The problem is that we're not going to get anything with regards to the COVID criminals, the Epstein child rape rings, I don't know if we're going to get to, going after the people with in and around J6. I mean, and I think when they go after it, there's going to be a real question. Are they going to go after any of the people who are at the very top of the food chain? Because when we talk about the election fraud and some of these things, I mean, listen, Obama, the Clintons, Soros, we're talking Zuckerberg, Gates, all these people. They every single one of them are potentially criminals who belong in a real federal penitentiary.
Hmm.
And I see President Trump having anybody in his Department of Justice who would actually put Barack Obama in jail? No, who's going to do that? I mean, Pam Bondi can't get 5 minutes off of Fox News to do anything. I
Yeah.
don't think she's competent. I don't think she's capable, and I do think she's corrupt. I mean, and I've got evidence. I mean, the
Hmm.
first full day of her job, the very first full day as AG, she could have came in and, we're going to go after J6. We're going to go after elections. We're going to go after Bill Gates. We're going to go after George Soros. No, the first full day, do you know what she did? She killed two OFAC investigations into her former client, Pfizer. Pfizer was being investigated by the DOJ for under two different OFAC investigations. And the very first day, instead of doing anything that anyone would care about, she kills those two investigations. I mean, this woman is garbage and needs to be fired. And basically, uh, even though I know that Trump is planning on some big, big things and we'll see a lot of action before election time, I don't know if it's going to matter because we've seen her throw the Comey case. We see it wasn't a bad judge. Okay, so the a lot of people, the activist judges, and we do. We have bad judges. But the Comey case, the Letitia James case, those weren't a bad judge. That was Pam Bondi intentionally appointing someone who was completely not under the law. I mean, what's her name? Halligan, was it Lindsay Halligan or something? I
Hmm.
can't remember her name. I'm sure she's a brilliant attorney. I'm not disparaging her in any way, shape, or form. But she was not legally put in that position. She clearly didn't have authority to do what she was doing. Bondi, I mean, this is like first year lawyer stuff that you could look at this and be like, oh yeah, that isn't going to work, right?
Yeah.
Bondi did that intentionally, and she waited until right before the statute of limitations to file the case so that it could never be brought again. I mean, this was 100% a setup to basically protect Comey and
Mm.
Letitia James, in my opinion. And I mean, that's just the kind of person. So even if Trump does bring some really great cases and does some great things, I wouldn't be surprised in the least to see Pam Bondi undermine him.
Yeah. Do you have any updates on with wasn't there a case being brought with John Brennan and the Crossfire Hurricane, all those people who colluded against General Flynn? Is he being tried down in Florida on a case, or are they seeing him that case?
There's some stuff going on down in Florida on a couple different actions, and I don't have anything real new or current on that.
That's okay.
I'm eager to see what's happening. And one thing I will tell you is, the general is a warrior, and
Hmm.
that man has bled for this country for a long time. He's a good guy, and he is a very smart tactician. I mean, the guy. So I know he's doing a lot of things. I know he's working with a lot of people, um, and he's very, I mean, he's getting things done. What specifically and how that's working, I do know that the DOJ is doing some things down there, but they've been very, very hush hush on that. Now, but we aren't hearing a lot of things. So Maricopa County just got raided by the
Hmm.
FBI, right?
Right.
That didn't get anywhere near the news it should. We had Georgia raided, right? So you can see, but Trump himself is involved with that investigation. So you got to understand that one. I mean, Pam Bondi isn't going to openly defy Donald Trump because she won't have a job. It doesn't matter who's trying to protect her. Doesn't matter how much Susie Wiles wants to protect her. They still have to. They still have to. Trump won't just. He just wouldn't. I think they're doing certain things, doing what they have to, and I think it's kind of one of those things where there's wins and losses because Donald Trump does want to see certain things getting done, and I'm hopeful that he's going to really make some hay on the election stuff, even though I'm very frustrated about the other stuff.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with your frustration. So many people are. I find it interesting in the timeline how physically, like you and I were both at the church together with Tina Peters at the same time for Charlita
God bless
Bassett's
her.
fundraiser. And yeah, and that was an amazing time to spend around Tina Peters and the case that she has been involved in. And I know so many people see her as an American hero and an American treasure for putting herself and her family on the line to preserve elections and to be vocal about what she saw and what she witnessed in the state of Colorado.
Yeah,
And so I know everybody's been praying for her release and I wish she wouldn't have to spend another day in that prison. What's
yeah.
your take on that case in that situation?
I think that's a travesty. I frankly think Donald Trump and his DOJ should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. I find it appalling, and I'm just going to say this. There's things that I love about what Trump does, and there's things that I don't. And one of the things that I find most appalling is, he's got his kids and everybody else making bajillions of dollars off of his presidency. He's taking care of certain people. But there's a lot of people who bled for that man that he did not take care of. Giuliani took a hell of a beating. Sidney Powell took a hell of a beating. Tina Peters is rotting in jail. And I'm going to tell you, I don't like that they've been left behind. I don't.
Hmm.
I just don't. I know that Trump has, done a lot of things for a lot of people, and that's great. That's great. But these are people who literally put it all on the line for you. There are lawyers out there that lost their licenses. There are still J6ers dealing with persecution. There are people all over the place still dealing with persecution. Not only are they not getting justice, in Tina Peters' case, she's still sitting in jail as one of the most important witnesses in the country to what was going on. And, I mean, she's not 20. Her health is
She's
at risk.
Mhm.
She's a gold star mom. She's even older than I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, this me being polite because I really love Tina. She's just an amazing woman. It
And
is,
they're not giving her any special treatment. If anything, she's been locked in solitary confinement. She's been
worse
pushed into
treatment.
broom closets and beat up in broom closets.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, they're doing everything they can to make her life miserable there. So she gives up, like putting her in a cell that's like 48 degrees Fahrenheit with
yeah,
no blanket. Like,
yeah. Yeah, it's
It's
horrible.
evil. Hmm.
No, it's horrible, and they're essentially torturing her, and it's appalling. It's absolutely appalling, and the fact that I'm sorry, but there are things the president could do. He just won't, right?
Hmm.
And if his DOJ, I'm going to tell you right now, if I were president, one of the first things I would have did is told my DOJ, you have two options. Find a way to get her out within 1 month or you're fired. So find a different job. Those are your options, right? Because and I trust me, they could have did something. I personally sitting here as just a regular lawyer without all the resources or anything else. I mean, I could tell there's 10 different strategies they could use.
Hmm.
Tickner and a couple of those guys working with her right now have voiced some different ideas. There's things that they could do, they just won't. And
Hmm.
I find that to be just abhorrent because that she's suffered for this country so dang much already. Uh, and yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. This is like one of those things where the truth matters more than how you feel.
Yeah.
This is a failure by Donald Trump. It doesn't mean that everything he does is a failure. It doesn't mean I hate Trump. And this. But one of the problems is we got people who are basically cultists.
Yeah.
Trump ain't Jesus. He's
Right.
another dude just like you and me. He makes
Hmm.
mistakes. He isn't always right. And what he's doing with Tina is very, very good example of something that isn't right. And what 5D chess move is there on that, by the way? I get the people, well, you don't know what Trump knows. No, I know plenty. I know that Tina Peters is in jail still.
Yeah.
Her life is at risk because she's in jail still. And I don't give a damn what 5D chess move there is. She shouldn't
Yeah.
be in jail. She
Right.
shouldn't be suffering for anything. She's suffered enough, more than enough. She's
Yeah.
given more for this country than most people will give in 3 lifetimes.
Right.
So, it's like, I mean, she lost her son.
Right.
I mean, what more, she lost her son, went to jail, standing on the truth. What more can that woman give? And we can't even have her back. I find that to
Right.
be appalling.
It's extremely dangerous too. I mean, every day that she's alive in jail is a blessing because
Yeah.
knowing what we know about the other side and how much they want to cover up the election and all of the criminality behind allegedly that they've been involved in. I mean,
Well,
she's not valuable to them. I mean,
look
so
at Epstein's suicide. I
right.
mean, we're going to have that. We're going to have something like that now. I mean, this is just insane to me. It's literally insane and listen, I just find that to be very disappointing.
Let me ask you this. Let's flash back to COVID and all the nonsense of all the crazy policies that secretaries of states and governors were trying to use emergency powers and all these things to, have mail-in ballots and all of these ways that we can discover, voter fraud and election fraud and things like that. You called COVID a permanent reset. What's one policy shifts and from that era that you think that we still haven't undone, and why does it matter now?
Well, the way that the law was interpreted or misinterpreted under COVID, I mean, a lot of that's still in the book. A lot of the precedents that are still in the book, very bad precedents that were made under the guise of, well, there's a crisis, we don't have any choice.
Hmm.
Very unconstitutional precedents. I mean, some that's rolled back a little bit now because the Supreme Court did recognize, hey, the Constitution doesn't take a break because there's an emergency. But there were a lot of legal precedents. There was a lot of expansion of what's called the plausibility standard in law. And basically, that allows courts to just throw cases out without hearing any facts or any evidence because it's under two cases. One, Iqbal and Twombly. It's Iqbal Twombly, the two cases that kind of set the stage for it. But they were set well before COVID, but then during COVID, they allowed courts to throw a case out that was viewed as implausible and not listen to evidence. And that really was a devastating thing because during COVID, the number of cases that were thrown out because they were called implausible, even though they were very good cases, was appalling. And that expanded beyond just COVID cases and into the election cases and to J6, all sorts of things. They were just everywhere. So that was a big deal. I mean, the PrEP Act's still on the books. We've got a bunch of different policies in and around health that are still screwed up. You know, we saw it laid the groundwork for kind of expanding the vaccine immunity that they created in the 86 Act. So the vaccine immunity was expanded initially by calling mRNA a vaccine. mRNA was never a vaccine. There's nothing about that was a vaccine. It's a gene therapy drug. It was admitted in both Pfizer and Moderna SEC filings that it's a gene therapy drug, right? I mean, they knew this from the beginning, and this just the plain language of it, right? So a gene therapy drug. Well, what is that? Well, I am injecting genetic material into my arm for a therapeutic purpose, right? That's literally the definition. That's what mRNA is. And it's literally the literal definition of gene therapy. So it was, instead of being regulated as a drug or biologic, it was regulated as a vaccine to expand that. Now we're seeing them, they love expanding this immunity thing. It's politically untenable. So now they're expanding it in other ways. And we're seeing, the expansion of, they're trying to push immunity for glyphosate. And then we have in the Farm Bill right now that Congress is trying to pass, and everybody's fighting about this, but they need to fight harder. They're trying to expand where that glyphosate immunity won't just be glyphosate. It'll be all sorts of chemicals. So they can put stuff in your house that you use to clean or stuff in your cleaning materials. Your kids get cancer, and guess what? You pay the bills, you can't sue anybody. So this is a disastrous thing that they're trying to do. And if they pass the legislation, they'll get away with it. You got Pam Bondi right now. The only time she ever fights in court is if she actually wants to defend one of her lobby groups. So she's out fighting for Bayer. By the way, Bayer has retained her former employer, Ballard Partners, which is a lobbyist company. So Bayer works with Ballard Partners. Well, she's now trying to defend Bayer in the Supreme Court to try and ensure that effective immunity that Donald Trump promoted in his executive order becomes even more. She's arguing that the Bayer should be immune, essentially, from lawsuits under failure to warn state law claims. And I mean, there's a lot of these policies that went forward. We still have the mail-in ballots. We still have extended voting. It's not just on election day. I mean, there's just a bunch of things that are going on that are still real bad from COVID. COVID was the Great Reset. You saw the two FBI agents that were talking about the insurance policy against Trump, and everybody said it's Trump-Russia collusion. That was never the insurance policy. COVID was the insurance policy. Mm-hmm. COVID was created in the mid-2010s under Obama, and it was the ultimate Trump card, if you will, against a guy like Trump. Mm-hmm. We know now it was supposed to roll out, and we're supposed to have permanent lockdowns under Hillary. Trump interrupted that, but he still gave us the lockdowns, and still gave us this debacle that was Operation Warp Speed. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. And do you remember the mock exercise, the Event 201? Was that in 2015, Tom? When they did that?
I think it's 2019.
2019. Okay, so it was right about a year before they released it from a Wuhan laboratory.
Yeah. I mean, this whole thing was 100% intentional. I mean, this was designed. We see now that Bill Gates and Epstein had been working on developing ways to make money off of global health crises for a number of years. Mm-hmm. We see that, Epstein was instrumental in a lot of these things. This whole thing was one giant conspiracy, and there's no question about that. It's not a theory anymore. I mean, we showed and were able to demonstrate, and then the Senate took our work and didn't bother to cite our work. But we were able to show that this was, created in the Wuhan lab. We were the first people to do that. And it was created there. You've got to understand, this isn't something that's really debatable. Mm-hmm. The technology necessary to create these bioweapons, to do this sort of gain of function work, is very controlled. So to do that work in Wuhan, for EcoHealth Alliance to be doing that work in a laboratory controlled by the CCP, That couldn't happen without authors under the law, very plain language of the law. That couldn't happen without the blessing of our federal government. Our U.S. aid funding that project tells you that the CIA was aware because USAID is a CIA program.
Mhm.
Our intelligence agencies were aware of this program, they were involved in this program, and they authorized this program. COVID was created with full knowledge of the deep state of the United States. It was deployed with full knowledge of the deep state of the United States, in my opinion. I can show that they knew it. I can't prove that they were a part of the release, but I do absolutely believe that they were a part of it. And this whole thing was set up, controlled. It made people trillions of dollars. It transferred wealth, destroyed small business on a global scale, poisoned I don't know how many billions of people globally in a permanent way. We now have turbo cancer. We now have kids who get myocarditis on soccer fields, so we have to have defibrillators. The world changed after COVID. It's never going back. And there has been no accountability at all because the people who were behind it are now running the show. Pam Bondi, Susie Wiles, all these deep state folks that were there and were working with people who were involved in this. Bill Gates is getting dinner at the White House instead of at Gitmo. I mean, this is
Yeah,
appalling.
I saw that Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, basically on either side of him and Melania. And I'm like, what? Why is there no handcuffs on these guys? Like, what's going on here? It's really weird, Tom. Like, I know that in President Trump's first term, when he was 45, he had a lot of issues with people in his cabinet, and he was having to fire many of them left and right. I remember those days. And
Yeah.
now, fast forward to now. Do you think that he has just as much opposition potentially around him? But why are we not seeing anybody getting fired? I mean, we just saw um, he had, I guess you would say, demoted. Um, what's her name? The no, Christy Nome, right? Because I
Yeah.
guess there was a statement put out about how much was spent on some campaign ad, but
Yeah.
he's not really firing people like he was in his first term. So, what does that tell you?
Well, I mean, what it tells me is that he's tried to change tactics.
Hmm.
And whether, I mean, the real question we all have to ask ourselves is why he's tolerating this, right?
Hmm.
Why would he tolerate? Imagine, I mean, because it's well known, Trump is Trump, right? I mean, he's his own man, his own thing. Imagine your chief of staff going out and telling Vanity Fair that you have the personality of a drunk. Now, Trump famously doesn't drink at all, very
No.
famously. He does not drink a drop of alcohol. And yet his chief of staff goes out and tells Vanity Fair, yeah, he's got the personality traits of a drunk. Imagine that happening and he doesn't fire her. She ripped every single member of his cabinet and he didn't fire her. All he said is that she is the most powerful woman on the planet. Why? What's she got? What information does she have? What's she doing? What's her control mechanism? So you've got bad people around Donald Trump. I mean, you've also, so some of it we have to ask ourselves, why is someone like Susie Wiles not fired?
Mhm.
Okay. Why, with all the trouble we're having on accountability, has Pam Bondi not been fired? And I don't have a good answer. I don't. Well, I know some things that I can't talk about publicly, but uh, they should be fired. Okay. And then we hear things like, and Trump is, I mean, obviously, who's not loyal to their family? But, I'm sorry, Jared Kushner's a POS. He's over, and we hear that Jared Kushner's over here and that he was instrumental in arguing that Trump should get going on this Iran war. He's a freaking real estate guy with no special connection to anything other than the World Economic Forum, who he seems to be best friends with. And I'm sorry, I don't care whose kid you are or son in law. If you're tied to the World Economic Forum, I don't like you because
Yeah,
those people are evil.
right.
Um,
Or the Bilderberg Group or any of those other
it's
secret
all
societies.
yeah, it's all
Hmm.
the same thing, right? It's all
It
the
is.
same. It's all the same people. It's all the same
Hmm.
thing. It's
Yeah,
just which rituals you're going to. But
right.
so
Well, I
I'm
also
very
understand too.
suspect
I'm
about
sorry, Tom.
Kushner. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was going to say that maybe you know more about this with Kushner, but isn't like Bibi Netanyahu kind of a really big influence on Jared Kushner? And I think there's a lot of there could be some conflict of interest on certain things. And I know
Yeah,
that it's really interesting to see that dynamic, especially the fact that it's his son-in-law, President Trump's
yeah.
son-in-law. So I don't know,
Well,
there's a lot of weird things that are connected there.
well, it's way beyond conflict of interest. I mean, there's no question that Kushner is using his position to make money. I mean, that's
Hmm.
inarguable, right? I mean, it's just there's no question about that. And I just, like I said, I don't like that guy. He strikes me as a weasel, and he strikes me as someone who's selling out. So, yeah, it's Trump's kid, so nobody's really allowed to say too much about it. But I'm kind of past caring. Uh, and the truth, listen, the truth is the truth. He is making money off of things that Donald Trump is doing. We know that, right? I support Israel as a nation, and I support the Jewish people. I'm not anti-Semitic in any way, shape, or form, but I think Bibi Netanyahu is an absolute monster. I think that the politics in Israel are a mess right now, and I can go after Israel's government just like I can go after our government. Doesn't mean that I hate anybody. Doesn't mean I don't support the country. I support our nation, but I hated Joe Biden and I hated everything about his administration. In the
Right.
same way, I don't like Bibi Netanyahu. He funded Hamas through Qatar to the tune of billions. He literally funded the terrorists killing his own people to the tune of billions. Essentially force injected 90% of his country with mRNA and has an mRNA needle trophy thing sitting on his desk.
Mm.
The guy has done more damage to the Jewish people than anyone I could point to. I think he's a monster. I think he's nuts.
Yeah.
And but it's something that, and I got to tell you, our side really has this messed up because you have to talk about, there's a reality. World War II had a very permanent effect. And my mentor was a Nuremberg prosecutor, right? So my mentor was a Nuremberg prosecutor. I was very into this. And what World War II, I mean, it's profound what that is, right? It's just a profound thing. The Jewish people they tried to essentially exterminate them on a profound scale, and they killed millions and millions, and it was a horrific thing. So like it's kind of like when we talk about the slave trade and black people in this country, you ought to have a little sensitivity that there's issues there, right? Now, yes, it's all in the past. No, I wasn't. No one in my family, no one alive that I've ever met was a slave owner. So, we're a little bit away from that, right? In the same way, no one in my family or no one that I've ever known was involved with, persecuting. Well, I can't say I've met a few people who, through my work that were horrible Nazi monsters. But, I mean, obviously I've always stood, but you have to recognize that, listen, when you attack Israel and attack the Jewish people, you're kind of it's not fair, right? You can say that there are bad people who are Jewish. You can say that there are bad people that are anything, but it doesn't mean that all Jews are evil. And I don't like the way that people do that. I don't like the anti-Semitism. I spoke in the rabbinical court during COVID. I stood with the because at the end of the day, all people have a right to live and do their thing. And I support the Jewish people and the Jewish faith being able to do their thing. But that doesn't mean I have to worship their government. I don't.
Right.
And
Or give up your First Amendment, right? Of
that's
freedom of
right.
speech and
And
freedom of thought.
and while I do defend anybody's right to say anything they want, good, bad, or ugly, because I am a huge First Amendment guy, I think that we do a disservice for ourselves when we're constantly ripping on everything Jewish, everything Israel. I think that we need to focus on where the problem is. The problem is that there are evil people in every single country of this world. Should we rip the British people? I mean, look at Starmer. I mean, that guy is an
Right.
absolute
No, the
horror
British
show.
people are under siege from my perspective.
Right.
They've been
And in the,
captured.
and I would argue the same thing is true of the Jewish people and
Yeah.
the people of Israel, which, there's a lot of people that aren't Jewish there, but I mean, the state of Israel, The nation of Israel, I mean, it's absolutely under siege from within, just like America is, from our
Right.
deep state, just like the
Right.
UK is. All of these nations are under siege, and we need to quit going after each other as people and
Hmm.
start going after the crooked leadership that's running the world and turning us against each other. This is kind of like the Democrat Republican thing. There's no two parties, there's a uniparty with a few people who are good on either side,
Hmm.
right? The uniparty is the problem. But what they do is they pit the Democrats versus the Republicans because it works. And now they're trying to pit people against each other. Well, you don't like the Jews, you don't like the Muslims, you don't like the this, you don't like the that. Listen, there are good and bad people everywhere. Yeah, I mean, do we have major issues with Islam? Sure,
Right.
100%. Do we
Right.
have uh, do we have some questionable things coming out of Israel? 100%. But I'm not against any group. I'm against the leaders who are corrupting those groups that are doing horrible things. And we've really got to kind of reset our focus on the enemy. The real enemy is the deep state. And what they do that's brilliant is they turn us against each other while we ignore that they're the ones doing it.
Right. And the deep state operates globally, worldwide. I've said this time and time again. It's not the people of a certain nation, it's the power or the control of power within those nations that are engaged in certain criminality and certain nefarious things behind the scenes. And let me ask you, it wasn't that long ago, back in September, when we lost an American patriot, Charlie Kirk, who on many podcasts was very open and vocal about just calling balls and strikes. And he's done nothing. He rose to the top by holding up Israel, by talking about biblical stories and biblical values. And but when October 17th had happened, he was starting to recognize patterns and he became critical of what he was noticing. And then obviously Candace Owens, after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, has kept the conversation going and trying to do her own investigations into what could have happened because she didn't believe the Fed narrative behind Charlie Kirk's assassination. What are some of your thoughts, if you can think back to last September about Charlie Kirk, and do you think that it's actually creating more open debate about how we view our relationship with Israel or the deep state, and how we're trying to differentiate our perspective of who could really be involved behind some of this, who's covering up for the situation of Charlie Kirk. What's your thoughts on that?
So I would argue that Charlie Kirk wasn't killed, he was murdered and martyred, right?
Hmm.
His death was a horrific tragedy that really kind of united us in a lot of ways and brought a lot of people forward and brought a lot of people that weren't before that speaking out. It kind of gave them the courage to say, you know what, it's time we take a stand. Obviously, it's horrible that he's gone, but it's amazing what his death triggered. And because it triggered that, it led to what we're seeing, one of the things that we're seeing now, which is where it's becoming more recognizable who's owned and who isn't,
Hmm.
right? It's become much more recognizable who on our side, which of these guys that claim to be influencers and podcasters and media figures and leaders in the Patriot movement aren't actually leaders, they're owned. Because there's just certain things that we can say. So with regards, and there's a lot to that question. So with regards to Charlie Kirk's murder, okay, I am a shooter. I don't get to do it as much as I used to, but I've shot more in my life than probably like 10 people. And I've shot a 30-06 a lot of times. I have shot a lot of 30-06 rounds. That gun is a cannon, okay? You use that if you want to hunt a moose. I mean, it is
Yeah, it's
a
going to do
big,
damage. Hmm.
big gun. There is no person on this planet whose bones are steel enough to stop a 30-06 round from 150 yards. Unless, I mean, that bullet would have blew through him without even batting an eye.
Hmm.
You can shoot through concrete blocks with a 30-06 without batting an eye. So,
Hmm.
I mean, that whole narrative is ridiculous. I don't believe that narrative one bit. There were so many holes in the story. I mean, the guy assembled the gun, disassembled the gun, left the gun, threw the gun here, did this. Everything in that story is a load of crap. I don't believe a single thing about it. And I don't. And here's the problem. Because I only need to find one major lie, right? So when I look at a story like Charlie Kirk, there's 4 or 5 different things that are really inarguable. You know, the idea that, I mean, you see the guy getting done with the shooting and running off. You know, I mean, what he somehow had time to disassemble in that very short.
Doesn't make sense, Tom. It doesn't.
It's demonstrably insane. Okay, so once I find out though that I've been lied to, I don't trust any of it. I don't
Right.
trust a single word of it. And the story came from Cash Patel, who told me that Epstein killed himself. I mean, the guy's a liar. I don't trust him, which
Yeah.
is sad because I was really excited about Cash taking this job. But you know, whatever.
Hmm.
So I I don't believe a word of this story, and because of that, I don't know what parts are true and what parts aren't. I mean, there may be some truth to some parts of it, but I don't know what is. And since I've got a liar, I just don't trust a liar, right? So that's that. Um, I don't know what did happen. I really don't. And one of the problems that we have on it is, and Candace Owens has shown incredible courage. I have so much respect for what she's done. Now the problem is that Candace Owens is a brilliant analyst and does a lot of great things, but she's not an attorney and she's not a formally trained investigator, police, whatever. And so there were things, you know, in her investigation that I think, you know, there were holes in certain things that she brought out. There were things that, you know, that she brought out that appear to be incorrect, right? And I'm trying to give as much grace because I mean, like I said, I would love to shake her hand. I think she's a really a brave person. Um, I think it's a stretch, some of the conclusions she drew, and because of that, you know, I know as an attorney, and I know as a guy, you know, when I started making the COVID arguments, I went through in very incremental steps, and I proved every single thing in 10 different ways. The reason I won those arguments was because you couldn't show that I was wrong because I covered every base. It's excruciatingly time consuming, it's painful, and I don't care how good your team is or anything else. You want to do that, you have to do the work yourself, and you have the amount of work that goes into it. I mean, it took me years, I mean, a year and a half to 2 years to gain the knowledge and expertise that I gained to be so effective in what I did. Um, and it was 24/7. I didn't take nights or weekends. It didn't matter when you call me, I'm working, right? So there was no, well, it's vacation, it's me time. It's that you want to be a top level expert. You want to get into some of these fights. You have to commit in that way. And I don't think that there's a way for someone to be as busy as she is investigating to do that without, you know, the right team backing you. And I think there's some mistakes. So that's too bad because I think a lot of what she found was very credible and very good. But what happens is when you fight something controversial, they'll use little mistakes to try and discredit everything you do.
Right.
And I think that's very sad because I appreciate what she did. And I know how easy it is to get pulled into some of these things where you're like, yes, this is it. You know, it's like, you know, we saw a number of those instances with COVID where it's like you really want to, you're like, yeah, I know this is happening, but I can't quite prove it, but I know it's happening. So I need to tell everybody. And it's like, no, 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 no. It doesn't matter if you know it. If you can't prove it, someone's going to discredit it with you. And it's a
Yeah.
very disciplined way of doing it. So that whole thing was said. I think that the turning point response is crazy to me.
Hmm.
I don't know what the deal is there. And there's a lot of good people at Turning Point, and Turning Point's been historically a very, very good organization. But you know, I just don't know what's going on there because to me, it's it's manifest. It's
Yeah.
very, very obvious that the narrative isn't true. So why you would tolerate that or accept that or deal with that, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Something is. Um, you know, I give a little grace. a lot of people attack Erica Kirk, and I understand what their point. You see her out doing her fashiony, glitz and glamoury, showy type things, and you're like, yeah, that doesn't look like a grieving widow. But I'm going to be real honest with you. I'm not going to put myself in the shoes of someone who has gone through that. Maybe that's just the way she is. Maybe it's not. I don't know her.
Hmm.
And I don't, would I do what she did? No. Would I handle this the way she has? No. I'd probably be at home working with trying to make sure my kids are okay.
Yeah.
But I'm also not walking a mile in her shoes. And I know that the number of people that have told me that, oh, Renz, you're doing it wrong. You're doing this. You should do that. Well, when you walk a mile in someone else's shoes, sometimes it changes your perspective.
Hmm.
So, I've got some grace for her too on this.
Hmm.
And basically, I guess to summarize the whole thing, I think it's tragic on every level. I think it's too bad that people like Candace who are speaking out and doing amazing things, trying to stand up for a friend, are attacked and they try to silence. But that's what the deep state does.
Yeah.
I also think there's no question this was a deep state operation. I haven't done the research to prove that, and I'm not going to try to. I don't have the time. But I think that Candace was right about all of that. And I think it's what we saw, the attack on her, the pushback on her. And yeah, she may have made a couple minor errors. And she certainly presented things probably a little different than I would have. But the pushback and the attacks that she got show you just how powerful the deep state is and just how far they're willing to go in attacking anybody. So,
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely a narrative that is being pushed out and in the court of public opinion. And it's interesting to kind of analyze both sides and thank God that we have the internet to be able to even get around mainstream news networks and things like that to even question what we're seeing and question, where people hang their allegiance on these matters. And so, all right, let me just ask you one last question, Tom. Like, if you had the opportunity to sit in a room one on one and share your thoughts with President Trump about the current state of the union, what kind of things would you like to say?
I absolutely promise you the first thing I'd say is, Mr. President, I believe from the bottom of my heart, and as someone who fought for you as hard as anybody could fight, that you are getting screwed. And what's going on right now is not MAGA, it's not MAHA, and it's not okay.
Hmm.
I don't know where it's coming from your advisors or who's behind this, but I can demonstrate, I can show you that some of the things coming out of your administration are incorrect and untrue. You campaigned on accountability. There's been none. You campaigned on draining the swamp. The swamp's getting deeper. You campaigned on a lot of things. We fought for you to do that. I want to fight for you again. I want you to be the man we believed in. Right now, whether you like hearing it or not, and I would look him in the eye and I would say this just like I'm saying it. Whether you believe it or not, Mr. President, there are things that you need to hear that you're not hearing, or unless you just actually don't care and are not the man we believed you are. I don't know which one it is, but I'm praying to God that we can get you some real information and get you some real insight on what's happening on a few things, and that you'll take that and do what's right with it. Because to my mind, I've been talking since your campaign about bad people around you pushing bad agendas. And I don't know whether you don't know about it or you don't care, but either way, I got to fight those agendas. And I just hope that I don't have to fight you doing it, because we're going to fight for the truth. At the end of the day, Matt, you asked at the beginning of this show what I do, what I believe in. God and our kids, right? I owe a duty to truth. And that's where I want to fight, right? That's where I'm going to stay. My show, it's rough, it's brutal. I go after people. And it's not because I'm courting controversy. It's because I want us to be better. I'm not interested in trying to show off and just say stupid things to get a rise out of people. I'm interested in showing you what's actually going on so that we can try and make it better. Yes, Pam Bondi sucks. Fire her. We've given her every chance there is. I don't need to say any more on that. I've showed it 100 different ways. Same thing with Susie Wiles. Um, so yeah, I'm going to be real blunt about that. But I've made the arguments 100 times based on facts, not emotion. And I think right now we're at a point where we all have to make a decision. Do you want to just trust the government? Because that's what a lot of people are doing. When they say, well, no, I trust Trump. I'm sorry, he's the government. I don't trust Trump unless he's doing the right thing. If he starts doing the right thing, I'll be happy about that, right? But
Right.
Trump works for us. I don't work for him.
Mhm.
I didn't want to work for him. I was very clear with some people about that when he was coming in. Um, we have to hold power accountable.
Right.
And if we don't, we get the same sort of stuff that we had. I made this mistake with Bush. I trusted Bush.
Mhm.
I trusted him with his war in Iraq. I trusted him with 9/11. I trusted him with all this. He's reading his kindergartner's his book while 9/11's happening, right? I trusted all that. Look where that got me. I trusted Donald Trump when COVID hit. He locked us down and gave us Operation Warp Speed. Now, do I think that he did that without being manipulated? No, I think he was absolutely manipulated into it. I think he did I think he thought he was doing the right thing, but he hasn't fixed it yet. So, yeah, I'm going to ask questions of Donald Trump or anybody else that I don't think is being truthful on certain issues. And I'm going to keep fighting for truth, whether it's uncomfortable or not.
And that's why I thought you'd be a great guest on my show, Tom Renz. I'm such a fan of yours, by all the work, all the hard work that you've been dedicating your life and your income and every aspect of yourself, your being, to fighting for truth and to fight for revelation and to fight for justice for we the people. I really want to encourage my guests. I'm going to go ahead and share a screen now. I want people to, if they're not already following you, to start following your X account and also to check out your website. So let me go ahead and just kind of dig into some of this here. I'm going to first bring up Tom Renz on X. You can find him. Basically, it was just at Tom Renz that they did it, or it's at Tom, I'm sorry, at Renz Tom, Renz Tom is his handle on X, and he's pretty active on here, posting updates about what's been happening from all the COVID nonsense. Um, he'll have some short clips from his podcast that kind of brief brief you and catch you up on what the current topics are. He does great work on his podcast. Really amazing guests that he brings on his show. I also want to, let's see, I'll pivot over to let's see, his website. And we have here at renzlawfare.com is his website where you can find out more about his uh, all of the different cases that he represents and his background, his accolades, things that he's done. You could request consultation with him. You can donate to some of the work that he's doing, and you get a really good understanding of what Tom believes in, what he stands for. He's been on my radar since 2020, and I'm so glad that you joined today, the podcast, Tom. Um, so please, if you guys would just give him a shout out, give him a follow on his X, leave him some comments, some likes. He's doing amazing work. But like you said early on, there's so much more work that needs to be done. And a lot of the people that are in the freedom movement are self-employed people. They still have jobs. They still have things that they are doing. So any amount that you feel on your heart to donate to people like Tom Renz to continue fighting for us. And he's always bringing updates as far as his production goes. So you know that he's constantly working. So please check out his website. And if you feel like donating, please do. And, Tom, it's been a really interesting, eye-opening conversation with you. And I'd like to sometimes reach back in time because we kind of see where we're going right now with our country. We're questioning things now more than ever before, from the big tech oligarchs to big pharma, all these things that we the people have been wanting to fight against. and these problems still keep coming around. So I love that we can have these discussions and talk about, whether it be Charlie Kirk or things as far back as 9/11. I mean, this is still the same battle that we've been in of good versus evil. And I'm so glad that I can bring you on the show to pick your brain on these things, because you've been pioneering a lot of these questions on your show as well.
Well, I appreciate it, Matt. I'm honored to be here. I'm grateful for what you're doing, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you again. God bless you, Tom Renz. Tell Andrea I said hi,
Will
and
do.
I'll be praying for you guys and all the work that you're doing, and I'll be in touch with you.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, talk soon.